Okay. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please, Terry.
Brennan.
Here.
Chartrand.
Here.
Dahlhoff.
Here.
Halfway.
Here.
King.
Here.
Kulzer.
Here.
Mowerham. Here. Legislator Mosier has been excused. Pepper.
Here.
Tabo.
Here. Everyone stands at our invitation. Lord, we pray, we ask your blessing upon our group this evening. We give you thanks for a beautiful day. We ask that we keep in mind all the people that have sorrow in their lives and that we are able to bring some hope to their lives. We ask for prayers for tragic accidents that have happened locally and people that have family members in distress. Keep in mind especially our own county employee, Santi Zaire, who was taken by ambulance Thursday to Syracuse Hospital, is in serious condition. There are other county workers that recently lost their loved ones. And we also remember our former highway superintendent, Bob Archer. So I'd ask that we have a moment of silence as we pray for all the people that in our lives that we care so much for. Amen. Now pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, we are privileged to have with us as a special guest, Ed Sinclair. Ed has quite a history with Lewis County, very active in the fire service, and tonight we'd like to recognize him with a proclamation. So at this time, I'd like to ask our EMS coordinator, Bob McKenzie, to escort Ed up to the main room here where we'll do the proclamation, present it to him. Terry, if you would lead when he gets up here.
Whereas Edwin Sinclair commenced his appointed duties as Deputy Fire Coordinator for the Southern Zone on January 1, 1984, under then Lewis County Fire Coordinator William Morrow, and thereafter by Coordinators L. Michael Tabo, James M. Martin, and most recently Robert A. McKenzie III. And whereas Edwin Sinclair has illustrated his dedication and commitment to the protection of the community at large as a firefighter of the Lions Falls Volunteer Fire Department since 1968, as well as assisted to determine the cause and origin of fires, all without remuneration. And whereas Edwin Sinclair was instrumental in securing state funding and subsequently overseeing construction of the Lewis County Fire Training Tower, a site which continues to provide regional firefighters with critical fire training, safety training. And whereas history serves as a reminder of our dependence upon volunteer firefighters who stand ready as first responders in any and every sort of emergency situation, and who deserve our utmost respect and admiration for their personal sacrifices and dedication. And whereas Edwin Sinclair has served honorably and selflessly during almost half a century for fire prevention and safety, and we have all benefited from his knowledgeable guidance and assistance. Now therefore, I, Michael A. Table, as chairman, and on behalf of the Lewis County Board of Legislators, do hereby record our appreciation and enduring respect for the dedicated service of Edwin Sinclair as Lewis County Deputy Fire Coordinator for the Southern Zone since 1984 and as a volunteer firefighter since 1968.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for
Mayor.
your years of service. Thank you for joining us this evening. Everyone should have received a copy of the October 6th meeting. Does anyone have any corrections at this time? Not, they stand approved. Report of the Rules and Legislation Committee for Rule 6. Terry?
The Rules and Legislation Committee has met, and they recommend to waive rules to act upon late resolutions this evening.
Moved by Larry, second by Neil. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. At this time, we'll open our public hearing for comments on the local law number 8, which is establishing truth in taxation in Lewis County. Does anyone have any comments from the floor at this time? Okay, we'll leave that open for the time being and go on to privilege of the floor. Does anyone from the public have any comments for privilege of the floor at this time? Okay, we move on to communications and notices. Terry?
There are no communications.
Okay, and reports of county officers and departments. Terry?
The Real Property Tax Director, Linda Hoskins, and Treasurer Patricia O'Brien have submitted approved applications for refund of 2014 and 2015 property taxes to Colleen Miller for 2 separate parcels in the town of Watson in the total amount of $1,457.29. Public Health Director Penny Ingham submitted the minutes of the August 10 Health Services Advisory Committee meeting to be placed on file. All legislators have received copies of the October 21st Highway Audit Report, the October 22nd Solid Waste Audit Report, the Treasurer's October Report, and meeting minutes of the September 15 Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors. All legislators have also received a semi-annual report for the semi-annual portion of mortgage tax for the period April 1 through September 30, 2015. And that concludes reports.
Thank you, Terry. We now go to reports of the standing committees. Phil, Ways and Means, Buildings and Grounds.
Thank you. All our departments' budgets are right in track. They're in line to do very well this year. Doug Hanel's report was very brief. He told us he had 66 days left. And, excuse me, Mike and Liz took us on a road trip down to Utica, where Liz had arranged a meeting with the controller's office for cost-saving measures. I'm sure she'll be reporting on that. The DSS parking lot should be done in 3 weeks. It's in budget. We had an inspection Monday, and that went fine. Liz had given us the charge of presenting a PPA tonight, which we are not prepared to do. I don't know how many demerits she's going to give us for that, but we still are working on fine-tuning the PPA. We're going to be meeting Thursday again on it to nail down some items, and we hopefully will be presenting something to you in one of the next 2 meetings, and that's my report.
Thank you, Phil. Neil, Social Service, also Agent Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Meet the services that make your community. The event was held October 27th at Loudville Elks. 42 community services and support agencies participated, and approximately 135 people attended. Head Start Family Event, scheduled for November 5th from 3:30 to 6:30 at Loudville Fire Hall. New York Connects, Office of the Aging, will be participating as a vendor providing grandparent information. HEAP, to date, 269 applications from OFA, and I believe there's over 300 from social services as well. Applications have been processed through OFA's office. Those receiving early mail-outs as they received their benefits last year. HEAP program officially opens November 16th. On that day, OFA will be mailing out a number of applications to seniors new to the program. And Department of Social Services also does HEAP, so I would surmise that they're probably doing the same. High cap, insurance counseling, annual coordinated open enrollment began October 15th and runs through December 7th. During this time, Medicare beneficiaries are encouraged to review their current insurances for coverages, premiums, and for familiarities. To date, appointments and requests for comparisons are being handled in-house by the high cap coordinator. When and if the demand becomes too great, procedures are in place so that the beneficiaries are still able to get served. Community Needs Assessment Survey. A total of 579 surveys were completed via paper copies, electronic entry, and phone interviews. JCC is now in the process of summarizing results, which will be utilized in the creation of OFA's 4-year plan, 2016 to 2020. That's all I have tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Neil. Jerry, cards and law.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I'd like to start with is a motion to authorize Sheriff Carpinelli to refill a part-time dispatch correction officer position.
Okay, moved by Jerry, second by Neil. Discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, other comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you. The other thing, give you some information, we're hoping to go live on the 18th of this month with the radio system. We've done some preliminary testing, it's not official, to see if we had good enough coverage to go live. We're in the process of programming all the firemen's radios. Just as soon as they come in, we're going ahead and cataloging them here, inventorying them, and we're going to send them out just as quick as we can. So when they come in, once we get them cataloged and inventory, then we'll go ahead and get the departments. We would like them to get them as quick as they can before we go live date. Give them a chance to practice with them a little bit, and we also got to accomplish training the trainers, which has been done, but they will have to train the firemen in their firehouse on the use of them. They're a little bit more complicated than the old ones we're using. So everything's progressing along pretty good there. Pagers will also go out with the radios. Pager system is up. It's tested well all over the county. And that will go, when we go live, it'll be pagers and radio on the 18th if everything holds. The old system will be shut down. We're not going to start renovation probably for a week or two. We just want to make sure the new system does not have any bugs in it, which I don't think it does, before we start dismantling, because once we take that apart out there, I don't think we'll get it back together. The other thing, as of tonight, I think they'll be starting at 10:35 construction. They will be running conduit down the halls. Department of Corrections wants them to work at night from, I think it's 10:30 till 5:30 in the morning. So all that stuff will be done. They'll be out of there before the prisoners are up going to breakfast and stuff or exercise. So we're still going to wait. They got to wait till we make sure everything's going good, which will be 2 weeks roughly after that to start complete renovation of the facility up to the court, at the jail. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless anybody has questions.
Jerry, you were pretty optimistic about the coverage you were receiving. Do you care to comment on that? You said it was quite...
Yeah, the first test, I mean, I'm very impressed with it. We did over 350 points. It's not like the final test where we'll be testing half-mile grids anywhere as we can drive with a vehicle. It was more to make sure we got coverage, go live and start using it. And then final test in this, well, probably be midsummer when there's full foliage, because what happened, excuse me, what happened was we slipped a little bit with the tower sites, everything. So it put us back and we never got a chance to do the
full coverage testing, because when we started our first test, probably 50% of leaves are off trees, and that's one of the requirements. Our initial test, we had very good coverage, except for a few areas. There was some up towards Harrisville, and there was also some between Osceola and the town of Lewis. We went back, it wasn't spotty, it was just the whole area seemed to be dead. So we went back to test it on a Thursday. The only difference that we found, we got good tests where we had the bad test. Weather conditions were different, and also if we couldn't use the portable radio in the car, we would go ahead and step outside and stand right beside the vehicle, not thinking. When we went to the next test, it was Frank Archer and I, the repeat test, because we couldn't get the same combinations. We did have the same vehicle we used before. And I got about 15, 20 feet away from the car. I didn't even try it in the car. And what we found is when I was walking back and talking, the closer we get to the cars, it was putting up a lot of interference. So they think where the bad tests were borderline the first time, and we didn't realize that the cars are putting out a lot of RF and stuff, and standing close to the car also, that the radio waves could have bounced off the roof and everything else and distorted it. But there was one spot, I think it was halfway up Bald Mountain. Sheriff couldn't get coverage, couldn't get out with portable or mobile. Went about 150 feet either side and got good coverage so he could get out and it was audible. And we found one, I think it was one spot that we had tested in the southern part that we still couldn't get out, but with a mobile you could, so we didn't have the mobiles the first day either. So, I mean, I'm satisfied with it, like keep doing more testing, just to confirm it that it wasn't a fluke, but other than that, I'm, feel pretty positive.
Good, very good. Any other questions for Jerry? Thank you, Jerry. Larry, Economic Development?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to clear up a few things with respect to the health insurance premium. Last month, we raised the health insurance premium 15%. Originally, it was going to be 20%, but we were expecting that the union would accept some changes to that plan so that we thought we could get away with just 15%. That didn't happen. We understand now that the union is thinking of revisiting those changes. If that happens, we may be able to stay with just the 15 and not have to raise it that additional 5%. But if we don't see any movement on that, we will have no choice but to raise the insurance premium at least at 5% in December. I just also want to be clear on this, that our health insurance plan is far too rich and it is not sustainable. And that's the end of my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Larry. And to clarify, you said that we may have to raise a minimum of 5% with no changes. I mean, as the year develops with no changes, it could go up beyond the 5%, correct?
Correct. We really have no idea where that's going to go. This does buy us another month to see if the current trend continues, and we'll have a better handle on, at least for now, whether the 5% will be enough or not. But that's not to say that next spring we may have to continue to do it. It's not anything that we want to do. It's not a retaliation thing or anything else. I think we need to recognize that this 15% costs the county, I think, close to $500,000 as their share of the premium. So it's not just about the employees, it's something that is just absolutely necessary.
Thank you, Larry.
Larry, you said December, we propose it in December for January 1st start or February 1st or something like that. Is that kind of your intent maybe, or?
Yes, I believe so.
Any other questions, Dick?
Larry, I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think it's important that people understand we're looking at the budget and the cost of the insurance, and I know Patty's not here tonight because she's ill, but we have to have a fund balance, if you will, in health insurance that gives us something in reserve in case we get excess claims coming in. I believe we've had at least 2 months that are really bad this year, and we're trying to get up over about a 4 or 5 year period to maybe a $4 million fund balance or a $3.5 million fund balance. We've made about a $20,000 increase, is my understanding, since we made this percentage raise. So you're correct, it's not punitive or anything, it's just trying to pay the health bill and ensure that the people who have the health insurance will have their bills paid. It's really prudent management of the health system, and I thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Dick. Any other comments? Okay, move to Craig, Transportation, Solid Waste.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll start with the solid waste and the transfer site. Pete and his staff continue diligently to work on modernization or consolidation plans at the site. The way waste management is currently being handled is most economical to date, but studies continue. Recycling is an issue, and I want to take this time to let people know that we as a board have taken an initiative to help Mother Earth recover from waste disposal. And by that I mean we have decided to adopt a clear bag program to help identify in the waste stream when recyclables are not going where they're supposed to go. We are going to continue to educate people on this, that we are going with this system of clear bags, and we hope to also further educate them on what is specifically recyclable. There seems to be some confusion. So you'll see a resolution in the packet that asks for some advertising money, but it's really educational funding through the media to help our constituents understand what we're trying to accomplish with this. With that said, we'll move on to highway. The Van Amber Bridge is now open. I think I mentioned that last month, but I wanted to add that the Lewis County Highway Department has received an American Public Works Association award for that bridge. The Amber over the Beaver River project has been selected by the Central New York branch of the American Public Works Association to receive the 2015 Transportation Project of the Year award. I think this lends to the professionalism that we see day in and day out by our highway department. I personally am very proud of each and every one of them and the management team that drives them. Also, we received just recently a letter from a constituent that I'm also pleased to tell you it commends our highway department. And it's one individual up in the area of Copenhagen that had a severe problem with erosion. And it's a long letter, I won't read the whole thing, but basically he said it was a timely, professional assessment of the problem. It was a collaboration between Copenhagen, the Copenhagen Fire Department, and our highway department that went up there and readily mitigated the problem. The gentleman, and I think he'd be okay with me telling his name, is Mr. David Woodruff from Copenhagen, and he'd like to thank everybody in the highway department. And again, I would like to publicly acknowledge what a great highway department we have. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Very good, Craig, thank you. Greg, taxations, elections, IT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The IT meeting was very short and brief. There was other meetings that needed to be held on that day, and so we cut it short. Basically, they say that Adam continues to upgrade the system here in the courthouse, and basically up at the DSS building if needed. I would like to relay some information that Martinsburg and Turn boards both would like the county to possibly kick in some money to help them with the dog control issue. Terry Tiss mentioned, the supervisor at Martinsburg said 20 to 25,000. If the county would kick in some of that, that amount of money, the towns could all go together and maybe hire one person to do the 17 towns. But they seem to be having problems maintaining one person or even two people to do this job, and they're looking for some financial assistance. So, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Dick, hospital.
Yes, Chairman. Of most note, the Lewis County General Hospital Board of Managers met last night, and we approved the 2016 budget to be passed down to Liz to be included in our budget later on this month. It was $69.75 million. That's a 3.2% increase over 2015, which was $67.63 million. Some additions this year: we've got a full-time ortho and the possibility of having a second, at least part-time to half-time ortho. Our percent of use of the skilled nursing facility is on an increase this year. Historically, it was in the 80% most of the year. We've conservatively looked at 93% next year, and a lot of us feel it's going to be 95 to 97 in the skilled nursing by mid next year. We're going to have another full-time doctor at South Louis, and we've got a PA retiring, but we're bringing another PA in to fill that position. There'll be a little overlap, but then we'll have continuation of services. The projected year-end surplus for this year is approximately $500,000 as of the September timeframe. We discussed that last night, and it still looks like it'll be a positive from this year's budget surplus going forward. Secondly, the employee of the month for September was Barbara Herr. She's an LPN in the home health and hospice area. The September employee of the month is Barb Herr. Barb is always early to work and willing to stay until all necessary work is completed. She's very knowledgeable in all aspects of her job: medical knowledge, terminology, computers, and organization. Always willing and looks for ways to be helpful. Team player, gives 110%. She's able to converse with doctors, RNs, LPNs, and the patient, and she tries to know each patient well. She keeps each one involved in the patient's care, informed and prepared. She takes care of scheduling, keeps up with the cars running, always has a pleasant voice, kind smile, listening ear. If you see Barb, please congratulate her on her excellent work. And lastly, we've got a business after hours event scheduled for Thursday, November 5th, 2015, from 5 to 7 at the Ridgeview Inn. I personally have never been to one of these, but I understand they're a lot of fun, and I encourage anyone that would like to go to join in at sometime between 5 and 7 at the Ridgeview. It's very informal, as I understand it, and you can drop in for 15 or 20 minutes. You'll meet people that are involved in the hospice area, and I'm sure some of the home health care, which is picking up here. And so if you can make it, I highly recommend it. And lastly, Dr. Lundberger, which is our new doctor at South Louis, on 11/4, which is tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m., there'll be a meet and greet at the South Louis Health Center. And I highly recommend you make that too. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dick. Andrea, Public Health Community Service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Health will no longer contract to provide jail nursing services. A nurse will be hired directly by the jail. Public Health will provide coverage until a nurse is hired and will provide coverage for sick and vacation time. Public Health received a second Performance Initiative Award of $13,000. This will be added to the 100% state reimbursable funds. The state has approved a preschool tuition increase of 2%. For community services, the Community Services Board will assume responsibility for SPOA. and that is a change. Lewis County Community Services Board is involved in 2 New York State Delivery System Reform Initiative payment, which is district initiatives. CNY Care Collaborative in the North Country initiatives. And the director will represent the county regarding behavioral health needs. And that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Question, Dick?
Mike, I forgot one thing when Neil was talking about the Office of the Aging. I've had several calls about the Office of the Aging sending out bills and stuff, and I'd just like to take a minute to explain what that is. The state of New York has recognized that people using the Office of the Aging, there's different income levels. If you're at or below the poverty level, there's no charge for services. And if you're twice the poverty level, they send a letter out that says, for certain services that were rendered, it's recommended that if you can, you make an in-kind donation, and they put a percentage of the charge in there. But I want to remind everybody, it's not a bill, it's a recommendation, and a lot of our people are seeing it as a bill. So they have to do it, the state requires them to do it, they monitor what kind of money they get in from that. So just for the people out there, and the same thing with the meals on the meal program. It's not a bill, but the state is saying, okay, if you can afford to help, we appreciate your help. So that's more the way it is. But the way the state words things, it doesn't come out quite that clear. So I just wanted to sit and announce that.
Thank you for the clarification, Dick. I got asked myself.
Did you?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to reflect on something Greg said, please.
Okay, yep.
He mentioned dog control. I too have a constituency in the town of Denmark that feels strongly that the county ought to step up to the plate in regard to that. Now I think you have an announcement you're going to make a little bit on, but maybe there's something there that will help them. I just think that it is something we have to take a serious hard look for, even though I know there's not much of an appetite to put someone else on the county payroll. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments? If not, we'll go on to the county manager report, Liz. Or Greg, you had a comment, sorry.
I agree, we probably do not need to look into putting another person on payroll. I think the towns are willing to do the job, but they're just looking for us for some assistance with financials. I think they will be more than happy if we could just kick in some money out of the budget. And I think there's probably some funds there that we probably could send their way to just help them out.
Phil?
You got any suggestions on the amount?
Well, you know, I mean, I believe Terry Tiss had it pretty well figured out. Between 20 and 25,000 would help them all to, you know, and if we did that, that would probably take care of a big expense for them. You know, 'cause their budgets are strained just like ours.
That 25,000, Greg, are you talking county-wide for all townships?
Yeah, the 17, yeah.
Okay.
Wide.
Well, we have a resolution in the packet tonight. I think that it could be used for that. I don't want to get ahead of it.
Dick?
Yeah, Mike, I think we have a committee. Joan is like the county chair on that committee. Joan, can you comment a little bit where we're at with that?
Yeah, we do have a committee. We have met. We've had some input from some of the towns, not all of the towns. We've also looked at whatever counties actually provide door control countywide. There are only 3 in the whole state. And it's a significant financial investment for the county to do that. And in those counties where they've done it, they've had all the towns on board to go with that plan. And it's, you know, for the discussions we've had on the committee level, we don't have all the towns on board. So we'll take this information, Greg, back to the committee and talk about it a little bit further and explore whatever other options we have. But truthfully, I think we have a very large county, I think one door control officer, one for the whole county would be quite difficult. If that person is up in Harrisville and something is happening in the southern end of the state, we're gonna get a lot of complaints about that. So we might be better off having some further discussion about breaking the county into regions and have the towns participate that way, and we're certainly willing to help them do that.
Joan, I for one would appreciate serious consideration in that committee as to the best way to mitigate this. I do know that one of our neighboring counties, when I was at NISAC, I spoke with their county manager, and he told me that it is a wash because the county gets the revenues that are generated from the dog licensing, etc. And he quoted that he believed his budget, he was talking off the cuff, was $500,000. Well, that's a big number. So if there's some way we can mitigate this, I'd be happy.
I spoke with him also, and he's the one who told me that every town was on board. We don't have that here yet. Maybe we'll get there, but so we have to have some further discussion.
Thank you.
And the other thing we found as we've been going through, no town has the same law. Every law is different, and, you know, if you don't get them using the same law, it's really gonna be hard for anybody to enforce it consistently. Because you gotta read each law and what they do here and there, so that was one of the things we noticed. And the other thing is, there's a lot of towns that it doesn't pay for itself. So, I mean, it's not a wash. Even if we took the revenue and did a county-wide, there wouldn't be enough money there.
Well, that one particular county indicated there was. And again, it's in committee, so we'll let the process go. I would suggest that it is a county issue because it's every town in the county, and that we need to look at it that way. How we mitigate it can be done through study, I guess.
But the reason I brought it up is that they were looking at the ballpark number. I mean, Terry Tiss kicked it out. That was to split up between all the towns. It wasn't just to go to one section of the county, it was to go to them all. And that they could utilize that funds for their dog control. And if they want to combine up all the, you know, say 4 towns want to hire one guy, they could combine up that way. Let them decide how to do it. They just, I'm sure they're all very willing to take a little extra funding and utilize it in the right way. And the other thing that I did notice in the newspaper, if anybody was watching or looking at the paper, Jefferson County's dog control is a county, but they charge it back to the town. And the town of Wilna is one of the ones that's trying to get out of it because the cost is pretty high to them. It's like $24,000, so they're looking at hiring their own dog control guy for like 14. You know, so I don't know if we should look at any of that at all. I think that, you know, I think just leave it with the towns.
Honestly, we have, and I'll say it exactly the way I feel, the county can't do anything cost effectively. So if we get involved in it or take it over, I mean, we're gonna have to have the money somewhere, and the way Jefferson County's doing it's not really cheap either, so it's almost better to let the towns and keep the county out of it, because we have certain obligations we have to meet that maybe they don't. So.
I agree with you, Greg. I think financial assistance is the route to go. I'm not exactly sure about $25,000, but and what Jerry says, that's absolutely right. The closer to the people, the better the government runs. But I would think that we should be able to find some funds and let them keep their revenues, just some assistance. But I'm not quite sure about 25 grand. But
Okay, done with that. Move on to county manager again. Liz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so everybody knows, the tentative budget will be presented in a special meeting on November 10th, and we will have our public hearing on the budget on November 19th. And I guess times are TBD. I'll have to decide that today. My partner in crime, as you see, is not here. She's not feeling a bit under the weather. You have your account distribution in front of you. I'll just highlight the two most important ones on there. Sales tax, to make budget for the year, we have to pull in another $2.1 million in sales tax in the fourth quarter. Our very worst quarter this year was our first quarter. We took in $2 million, which was in fact a 13% drop from the prior year. So Patty and I are pretty confident that we're going to exceed our budget for sales tax for the year. On the hospital is up to date on its repayments to the county. And then I'll bring your attention to the last page, which is our healthcare account, which we talked about before. We continue to lose money in our healthcare account. September was the third worst month, with claims exceeding premiums by $167,000. Year to date, the fund has lost a little under $1.2 million. Of course, in these numbers, we haven't seen the benefit yet of the 15% increase that we implemented in October. I get labor unemployment statistics from Cheryl Mayforth on a monthly basis, and I've been meaning to share them. Interesting to note, and sometimes lose perspective on this, our unemployment rate for September was 5.6%. In April of this year, it was 7.6%. So we've made some steady progress in employment rates throughout the county, which is obviously good news. I think the national average is somewhere around 4.5%, but it's certainly not where we were a year and a half, 2 years ago when we were looking at numbers around 8.5%. Eric Verkler, Frank Pace, Tim Peterson, and I had the opportunity to visit SUNY Morrisville and Nelson Farms last week, which is a very interesting trip for us. What I took away from it is there's a really good partnership between public and private entities there. The school took us to their dairy incubator, which it's probably half the size of this room, not even that. And they talked about not only the classes they teach there, but also what they do from the public's perspective, if the public is interested in coming in and learning how to do something like cheese making or ice cream or yogurt making. They have a complete curriculum that takes you from actually your original recipe all the way through scaling production, doing all of the testing, all the certification, all the distribution, logistics, pricing. It's a pretty comprehensive program. After we went to the dairy incubator, we visited Nelson Farms, which, if you're familiar with it, it's affiliated with Morrisville, but it's both a retail operation and a community kitchen. Again, not a very large facility, but the front of the store is the retail operation, and they have all their products that you can imagine, from maple to barbecue sauce to salsas to pastas, tomato sauce. What was interesting is the lady who was giving us the tour, who works there, my takeaway was it's actually not a huge investment in either the dairy incubator or in the community kitchen. The real value of the operation is in the knowledge that this woman and her counterpart in the dairy side had about all of the regulatory issues and hurdles you need to get over in order to bring a product successfully to market. And I think Eric and Frank would concur with that. But it was good to make that contact. I think it gave us certainly a better grounding in what an incubator is and how it can operate. And as I said, it's not a huge dollar investment. I think it's more the knowledge to know what products you're working with and how to bring them to market. And then lastly, Phil reminded me of the comptroller meeting, and of course I didn't bring my notes for that. But unless anyone else wants to chime in, my takeaway from that meeting was that all of the ideas, probably 15 or 20 ideas that the comptroller's office put on the table, are things that we already have in motion, with the exception of a couple that we need to go back and check. And the one I think we'll probably step up to quickly is going to be doing a NYSERDA audit, just an energy audit of all of our county buildings. So we're looking into seeing what the options are there. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Very good, Liz. Any questions for Liz at this time? Okay. Brought this little item with me tonight just to show be the newest addition to our time capsule. Or this will be placed in the Fort Drum Monument time capsule. So keep them coming if you've got any other little trinkets throughout the county. And just quickly summarized our inter-county meeting that we hosted. I think it went very well. I had a lot of comments from people saying it was one of the most, or it was the most interesting tour that they had ever been on for the inter-county groups. We had about 40 people in attendance, which was very high. I don't know as I've seen it that high for a long time. So I congratulate everybody for adding to that event. One of the things that was brought up at our meeting was our attorney, Joan, talked about the indigent defense bill, which is in our packet, and should we approve it tonight, I'd like to forward that on to the inter-county group for action at the next month, if nobody has any objection. So, other than that, that's it for my report, and we'll go back to the public hearing on the establishing truth in taxation. If anyone has any comments at this time before we close the public hearing, now's the time to do it. Not to put you on the spot, Greg, but do you have any comments on the local law, what it entails?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. All right, anyone else have any comments before we close the public hearing? Phil?
I think it's a good initiative by Greg and the committee because it tells the people where their money's going and the burdens that we have from the state that we have no control over, but other than the control to do the taxing of the people. So I applaud Greg and the committee for putting that forward.
Very good. All right, any other comments from anyone in the public on the local law? If not, I'll announce the public hearing is closed and we move on to the report of the Ways and Means Committee for Rule 7. Terry?
The Ways and Means Committee reports they've examined the claims presented for payment in the total amount of $1,333,825.79 and recommend that they be audited and allow for the amounts claimed. That's signed by the entire committee.
Moved by Craig, second by Larry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolutions?
First resolution then is auditing and allowing the claims in the amount of $1,333,825.79.
Moved by Phil, second by Craig. Roll call, please, Terry.
Brennan,
Yes.
Chartrain,
Yes.
Dahlhoff,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Causer,
Yes.
Morahan,
Yes.
motion absent, Pepper,
Yes.
Tabo.
Yes.
Resolution 328 is to adopt and otherwise treat local law number 7 to establish truth in taxation in Lewis County.
Moved by Larry, second by Jerry. Discussion? Roll call, please, Terry.
Brennan,
Yes.
Chartrain,
Yes.
Dahlhoff,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Causer,
Yes.
Morahan,
Yes.
Pepper,
Yes.
Tabo.
Yes.
Local law introductory number 9 is restating local law 4 of 56, being enumerating rules and regulations of the administration of the Lewis County Self-Insurance Plan. It's amending that law basically to increase the reserve to $2 million and to give the board a mechanism to pass along any penalties imposed by the Workers' Compensation Board to the responsible employer participant. So you're then setting a public hearing on that local law amendment for December 1st at 5 p.m. Resolution 329.
Okay, motion for resolution, Jerry, second by Neil. Discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To transfer funds, building codes.
Moved by Larry, second by Craig. Discussion? On Craig. Greg.
Jerry, is this, I thought they were going to purchase a F-150.
I think a swap back around, what this is one vehicle was given as grief, and they do have a car for better locations, so it's to replace that one, but they're looking at 2 other vehicles too.
Oh, so they're still looking at purchasing a truck.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Thanks, Jerry.
Other questions? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing Department of Buildings and Grounds to enter agreements for plowing of the roads to tower sites in Lewis County.
Moved by Larry, second by Neil. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To transfer and appropriate funds, Stowe Street buildings.
Moved by Neil, second by Jerry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To appropriate and unappropriate funds for community services.
Moved by Neil, second by Andrea. Discussion?
I'm a little confused as to what's going on here. Andrea, can you help me, please?
It's $15,000 moved 3 times or something.
It's basically moving it from NERCL to TLS. They're doing, right, Andrea, they're doing some of the additional work. So they're just moving the money from one company to the other company.
Thank you.
Other questions? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorize an agreement between county and CSCA Employee Benefit Fund.
Moved by Neil, second by Jerry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing execution of a correction deed.
Moved by Neil, second by Phil. Discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing an agreement with New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services.
Moved by Andrea, second by Jerry. Discussion? Jerry.
This just extends the grant for another year because we're running a little bit behind.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To appropriate funds, fire and emergency management.
Moved by Neil, second by Jerry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To appropriate funds, fire and emergency management.
Moved by Neil, second by Andrea. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To appropriate funds, fire and emergency management.
Moved by Jerry, second by Andrea. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement with New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Moved by Neil, second by Jerry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
In support of Municipal Electric and Gas Alliance's plans for community choice aggregation.
Moved by Larry, second by Phil. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing distribution of radios and equipment to Lewis County Fire and Rescue Departments and a memorandum of understanding lease agreement between the County of Lewis and all firefighter departments.
Moved by Neil, second by Jerry. Discussion?
One question, and I realize the importance, of making sure our emergency services have the tools necessary to do the job. But when we first initiated conversation on this system, there was some question as to what kind of equipment, at what level we were providing the fire departments, et cetera, et cetera. And I realize this isn't a gift, correct? We are just going to fund it for them because they didn't get their grants?
Well, one of the things is we are waiting on an AFG grant, but I don't think we qualified. I got a letter today, and I don't know why it came to me unless it was the southern part, West Leiden was the main grant writer, and I'm treasurer there. So I assume they'll be north, south, and central will be getting them. I mean, we do have an option if the fire departments want to reapply of getting the funding later, but when we originally put this package together, whether they qualified for a grant or not, with us putting the system in, and we've had discussion and whether we like it or not. I mean, if we go with this system and kill the other one, they've got to have at least the stuff, regardless of who pays for it initially, to perform their duties when we go live. One of the things is, you know, it'll be passed on. If they don't get any grants or money, there's no way that these departments could take on $100,000 debts to put those radios in their firehouses. So, I mean, what we originally did when we did the total package, worst case scenario, included those units under our cost, and we're trying for the best. If we do get one of those AFG grants, it's going to pay down that difference, and that was the agreement with the fire departments. And if we don't get it this time, hopefully they'll reapply again for the same thing. And, you know, if they do get awarded, we will get money back on the radios. But if we don't get it, we're going to have to move forward. And then, I mean, after this initial one, it'd be paid by the taxpayers, and instead of all the towns. And the other thing is, it's an understanding that we will not provide anything after the initial. In other words, get them up and running with minimum. They got to maintain it. We won't give them funding again. It's always them to maintain what they have. And we went to the level that was what they have now and no more. So like the trucks got mobile radios, and each line officer got a radio. And we're willing to give up to 6 for EMS, providing they show us proof they got 6 EMS people. And that's as high as we'd go with EMS. If they only got 3, that's all the radios they're going to get. So we're being pretty tight with them. Hopefully I answered your question.
You did and you didn't. Okay? Again, I can't help but reiterate that they're very important to us, and their ability to communicate is essential to them doing a good job. I wouldn't take that from them. But are we, as we talked about previously when this radio system was first discussed, there were certain departments that wanted a lot of frills. They wanted to give a radio to every officer. And I think you just addressed that, but I'm not certain because you went on. Did we equip them to the minimum necessary to perform the job, or did we give them a frill package?
I feel it was the minimum, and the reason I say that is they got 1 mobile for all pieces of apparatus they have, so they could talk, because on the fire scene, and we put out 8 radios for line officers, because some have a couple more than that, but we funded at that level. And the other thing we did, we put 1 radio, or 2 radios in each engine, and they're specifically for whoever does an interior attack to use, so they have communication inside, and that's it. So there's, I think, a lot of them, they're not getting anywhere near the radios they have. So I think it's minimum to do their job.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the resolution? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorize an agreement between Highway Department and the Town of Pinckney for the transfer and sale of certain used equipment to the town in consideration of a credit to be applied to the county for snow and ice control on certain county roads.
Moved by Larry, second by Jerry. Any discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Approving amended memorandum of understanding between the Lewis County Hospital for Human Resources.
Moved by Jerry, second by Neil. Discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
In support of New York State Assembly Bill 6202, calling on the state to assume the cost of indigent legal defense services and for the complete reimbursement to all counties for expenses associated with the indigent legal defense unfunded mandate.
Moved by Larry, second by Craig. Discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To appropriate funds, Office for the Aging.
Moved by Neil, second by Andrea. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing an agreement between probation and children's home of Jefferson County.
Moved by Neil, second by Andrea. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing an agreement between probation and Insights Forensic Counseling.
Moved by Neil, second by Andrea. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Amend Resolution 316 regarding agreement between Public Health and the Preschool Special Education Program for transportation with Bernie Bus Service.
Moved by Neil, second by Greg. Discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing memorandum of understanding between Public Health and Community Action Planning Council.
Moved by Neil, second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorize agreement between Public Health and Central New York Care Collaborative Incorporated.
Moved by Neil, second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing memorandum of agreement between Public Health and Lewis County General Hospital for consultation services of medical technologist.
Moved by Neil, second by Greg. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Transfer funds, Public Health.
Moved by Jerry, second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing amendment and extension of grant between county and the state of New York acting by and through Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation.
Moved by Larry, second by Jerry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between County and Bonadeo and Company LLP for consulting and assessment services for Department of Social Services Chronic Care Program.
Moved by Craig, second by Andrea. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing memorandum of agreement between Social Services and Credo Community Center for the treatment of addictions.
Moved by Craig, second by Greg. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between Social Services and Hand in Hand Early Childhood Center.
Moved by Andrea, second by Jerry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between Social Services and Laboratory Corporation of America Holdings.
Moved by Neil, second by Jerry. Discussion?
Neil, all these are renewals, aren't they?
I believe so, Phil, but I'm not sure that this one is, because I didn't hear about it, I don't see it. Let me ask John, is this a renewal?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All in favor of the resolution, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing public cooperative agreement between DSS and the County Law Department for child support enforcement proceedings.
Moved by Phil, second by Neil. Discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between DSS and the County Law Department for purchase of services, collections, and recoveries.
Moved by Phil, second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing cooperative agreement between DSS and Law Department for a purchase of services.
Moved by Phil, second by Craig. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between DSS and Lewis County Opportunities.
Moved by Neil, second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between DSS and Rubensall, Knudsen and Associates.
Moved by Neil, second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing memorandum of agreement between DSS and Transitional Living Services.
Moved by Jerry, second by Neil. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing a memorandum of agreement between DSS and Transitional Living Services.
Moved by Neil, second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between DSS and US Care Systems.
Moved by Neil, second by Dick. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between DSS and Volunteer Transportation Center.
Moved by Neil, second by Jerry, is that a second?
I was scratching, but
I'm getting desperate for seconds, I'll call it a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah, you own it.
All in favor of the resolution, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing additional legal fees pursuant to the retainer agreement with Woodlatis Law Firm for professional services to assist in preparation of a purchase power agreement.
Moved by Larry, second by Phil. Discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing an agreement between county and WWNY TV Channel 7 News for solid waste department advertising campaign.
Moved by Greg, second by Neil. Discussion?
Where's the money coming from? Is it coming from the enterprise fund?
That's correct.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, Chairman, I think it's important to point out the other piece of this. This is to promote recycling, which is suffering in the county, and to put the information out there necessary to encourage and increase recycling.
Thank you, Dick. Other comments? All in favor of the resolution, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Standard workday and reporting resolution.
Moved by Larry, second by Craig. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing an agreement between county and Bonadeo for consulting and assessment services for certain Lewis County departments.
Moved by Jerry, second by Phil. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 372 to appropriate and transfer funds for various accounts.
Moved by Larry, second by Phil. Discussion? All in favor, Andrea, do you have them?
I have a motion.
Motion on this resolution?
Yes.
Or,
Right here.
That's correct.
to amend this resolution?
Yes.
Okay. What is it?
Motion to amend section 1 to increase the transfer from fund balance to $1,020,000 and add a $20,000 appropriation to transitional living services for single point of access program, account number A4318.4999.
Okay, motion by Andrea, second by Jerry. Is there discussion on the amendment, to amend?
What is that, what's that funding for, Andrea?
Andrew, can I take that?
You want to
Go
take
ahead, Liz.
So, a couple of weeks ago, TLS came to the Community Services Board and was asking for $65,000 a year for 2 years to assist them with some operational expenses that they did not, they didn't anticipate. Director of Community Services, Pat Freilich, took the assignment from the CSB to kind of look at that request, see if it made sense. She subsequently came back with a recommendation to the CSB board to drop that number from 65 to 20,000. In the discussions with the CSB board, there was a thought that they might be able to reallocate existing monies that currently come through the state. So it was decided last week at the CSB meeting to rescind the request for the 20,000. Tammy McIntyre and Director Freilich both contacted the State Department, the State Office of Mental Health, and asked them if they could reallocate the funds as proposed, and the state said no. So the CSB is now reinstating their request for the additional $20,000 in funding. Does that answer your question, Frank?
Yes, thanks, Liz.
As the Community Service Board is making this request, and it's going to go to TLS?
Yes.
And didn't TLS just recently buy the Commons?
Yes.
And this is a funding shortfall?
I may turn it over to Pat here, but the request was for, I would say, a bridge funding to accommodate the change in the delays that they anticipate seeing in billing and reimbursement because of the DSRIP changes. Is that accurate, Pat?
The Medicaid managed care changes as well as the ICD.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Related back to their reporting a shortfall in anticipation of the Medicaid managed care initiatives, as well as the changes from the ICD-9 billing to ICD-10. And that was the basis of the request.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions?
I do have another question on this appropriation transfer funds. Phil, I guess because your Ways and Means, you have $50,000 going to the LCIDA, and is that the one where you're transferring it on Resolution 377?
Yes.
So we're going to transfer $50,000 to the IDA for a small business loan fund program, even though the IDA has a budget themselves.
Yes, that is the intent, to give them $50,000 to administer the small business loan fund, yes.
But don't they have their own fund that they can fund the small business loan fund with?
They can't loan money. They can buy equipment and that type of stuff, but they are unable to loan money. Isn't that right, Larry?
That's correct.
Okay, then how are they going to, oh, so this is just to administer the loan fund?
They're gonna do it all. They're going.
Well, I thought they
they're
were
gonna
loan it.
Well, they can with this, yes.
Phil,
They
maybe
have
Eric
their
could-
own funds, but we we can give them the funds to loan out for small business. And they administer it, yes.
They
Larry,
administer the loan fund, but the $50,000 goes in the loan fund to be loaned out.
Earmarked for that.
Right.
Is there currently any money in that fund, or is this the whole fund?
What's the balance there?
Yeah, do you have a handle on how much is in that loan fund?
County funds available are currently about 77,000, I believe, in that neighborhood.
So currently there's $77,000 in that fund. And is there more applications than in the system?
We are always looking for more applications. There is $50,000 committed.
There's what?
$50,000 committed in an approved loan.
From that 77,000?
Correct, there is an additional $75,000 from a USDA loan fund.
So you have 75,000 from a USDA loan fund too, to loan out,
Correct.
but you haven't loaned it.
There's approximately $150,000 total available from the two sources. And there's $50,000 committed in an approved loan.
Okay, so that leaves you a balance of $100,000.
That's approximately correct.
And do you have any applications at this time?
Not currently.
So what do you need the 50,000 extra dollars for?
I was not involved in generating that resolution, but having funds available is not a bad thing.
But you do have funds available, you have $100,000 in funds.
So
Right, Ken.
this, one way to look at it would be that we would be able to fund 3 applications instead of 2.
But you don't have any applications.
Liz, you got a comment?
No, I just wanted to say, I mean, this is in anticipation of setting up the loan fund for 2016.
You're anticipating putting 50,000 more to the 100,000 that you have no applications for. Is that what you're saying?
Today, we don't, but a year ago, we didn't have the application we have now. So, you know, this is a funding mechanism for the 2016 plan. That's what it's there to support.
So you're saying a year ago, since a year ago, you've only had 1 application.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this is a decision or a proposal that we consider refunding the Small Business Development Fund as we have in the past for small business loan applications. It's no different than any other appropriation we've had in this fund before.
This is a one-time.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Currently, we have a motion to amend this resolution. Andrea, could you just repeat that again, what we are amending to?
For transitional living.
Yeah.
It is a motion to amend section 1 to increase the transfer from fund balance to $1,020,000 and add a $20,000 appropriation to transitional living services for SPOA program, account number A4318.4999.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Now, do we have any discussion on the purposes to amend that motion? Any further discussion on that? Jerry? Oh, yeah, we got that, okay.
Thank you.
All right, if we're ready to vote on the amendment, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, now we deal with the amended resolution. Is there any further discussion on the amended resolution? All in favor of the amended
I got
resolution?
one more question.
Go ahead, Greg.
Phil, I do believe on that highway building, the highway building, I know that's for the future. I mean, that's the one we put
Yes.
money. Now, is that not less than what we did last year?
There's 200,000 in the budget. This 100,000 would be in addition to that.
Also, we're gonna put 300 towards it this year.
200 in the budget and 100 on a one-time basis. Yes.
All right, thank you, Phil.
The premise of that is to maybe start some engineering to get our path forward. That was the idea of it.
Kind of get us started
Yeah.
and fund it,
Yes,
rather than go to the taxpayers.
exactly, yeah.
Other questions or comments?
Thanks for that easier question there, Greg.
Well, I didn't mean it to be a tough question but I just,
It was a good question, actually.
like, I guess if they have $100,000 in their account right now and they don't have any applications, and they've only had one in a year, I just wonder why we're putting 50,000 there and not putting it somewhere else.
Hopefully this conversation will spur some interest. Okay, any other comments or questions? All in favor of the amended resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To appropriate funds, capital equipment.
Moved by Jerry, second by Dick. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To appropriate funds, capital economic development.
Moved by Jerry, second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To appropriate funds, capital highway building.
Moved by Jerry, second by Craig. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
To appropriate funds, capital radio equipment.
Moved by Phil, second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Transfer of funds to the IDA and a memorandum of understanding.
Moved by Jerry, second by Larry. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Number 378 has been withdrawn and replaced by 379. It's authorizing one-time distribution to towns and villages.
Okay, moved by Craig, second by Neil. Discussion? Can I ask what the change was?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I can answer that.
Okay, go ahead.
There's,
County Attorney Joan?
the language in the whereas clause was amended. We can't distribute for operational expenses of towns and villages, but we can make a distribution for government efficiencies in those towns and villages.
Thank you, Joan. Other questions regarding the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to commend my fellow legislators for taking this bold step in providing some assistance that is much needed by our towns and villages. Thank you.
Other comments?
You're running unopposed.
It's unrestricted. They can
Credit where
spend it on
credit's due.
anything they want.
Yeah, that's true, Jerry. Thank you for commenting that.
Other comments? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 380 is in memoriam of Robert Archer, introduced by the chairman. Whereas Robert Archer recently departed this life on October 31, 2015, and whereas he began service with the County of Lewis as a highway department laborer in May of 1952, thereafter as an MEO, general foreman, and deputy superintendent of highways, being appointed and serving as Lewis County Superintendent of Highways from May 1, 1982, until retiring on October 18, 1991. whereas it's proper for us as friends, acquaintances, and members of this Board of Legislators to record our recognition and appreciation for the sincere, unselfish, and valuable services rendered by the deceased. That is an enduring record and mark of respect to the memory of Robert Archer, an honorable and able public official. This resolution shall be printed in the official record of the proceedings of the Lewis County Board of Legislators, and a copy thereof forwarded to the family of Robert Archer.
Moved by Dick, second by Phil. Discussion. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we need a motion to set our next meeting for November 10th at 2 p.m. for the purpose of presenting the 2016 budget and also to set the public hearing for November 19th. I think they had a time at one time.
Mike, that public hearing will have to be set by resolution at your November 10th meeting.
Oh, got it. Okay, thanks, Terry, for the correction. Okay, well, we'll set the motion for the November 10th meeting. Phil, second by Craig. Discussion,
What was that time again?
2 p.m. All in favor of the resolution, motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And I believe we have some executive session to discuss salaries. Motion to go into executive session by Neil, second by Jerry.
I'm gonna sit on my hands the next week.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are in executive session.